Awesome. Well, I think my first smart panel I brought here was literally 7 years ago. So it's been a long process, but I'm so excited that you guys were able to take advantage of this grant and get this hardware in front of your teachers. And so obviously us being here today is to try to start helping you to take advantage of all this hardware, but also just know that this isn't a one-time thing. We will be following up, and any support along the way. It's not all today. So we will definitely introduce everything today. Vincenza is awesome at going through all of the hardware and getting you acclimated with how to navigate this new technology. But we will be having some follow-up additional training after that as well. So,
all right, well, thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Vincenza. I'm with Smart. I actually live in Connecticut, so I had a nice little drive up here today. Here to show you your new Smartboard MX V2 model. What we're going to do is going to go and talk about the hardware itself, the buttons, how things connect. There's ways that you can use the panel with your computers connected or on its own in an Android mode that it has called IQ. So what we're first going to do is just talk about the panel itself. What I have displayed up here in the shared screen is a Smartboard MX V2. This is actually a poster. This is something that can be printed and you can have it next to your boards, next to your panel so that you have a quick reference guide to it. So but just to kind of go through and turning on the display. The way the display is set up is that it does come with a remote control, but you have your controls on the panel itself. So on the left here, you're going to see, how to turn on. Oops, that was fun. Okay, how to turn on the display. And all the buttons that are located in the bottom left. So we have power button, and then that will just kind of power it on and put it to sleep when you need to. There's actually a main rocker switch on the panel itself, and it's located in the back left of the board underneath like a little section where the power cord is plugged in. Okay, so I don't know if these are all mounted on stands or on walls or
just a few are on stands. Most of them are wall mounted.
Okay.
And that's a great thing to know, that rocker switch. Not that children would ever nefariously mess with your hardware to throw you off for the day. But if you push that power button and nothing's happening and there are no lights, you definitely want to reach under there and just make sure that rocker hasn't been turned off. I've had teachers in schools call me saying their equipment isn't working, and that's what that is. There's no reason to rocker that off on a regular basis. All of these are Energy Star rated. It's designed to go into a sleep mode. So on the daily, you should really just use that button on the front of the panel. But definitely knowing that rocker switch there is helpful.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
Obviously hitting the power button once puts it into sleep mode.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold the power button in, so you get the energy slider,
Mm-hmm.
is that the same or closer to what the rocker switch does as far as shut everything off?
It's more like a mini reset to it. Yeah.
The slider.
Yeah, it's more like a mini reset. The rocker switch is really going to power it down. So if there's ways to sign into the board. If you were signed into the board, it would sign you out. It would definitely kind of turn all the functionality off. A lot of times, if there is something that's acting funny with it, there's a recommendation to turn it off that way. So that's kind of what it does. It resets some of the features, as far as the sign-ins are concerned. There is volume control on your remote control or on the panel itself. So I don't know, I see in this particular mobile setup, you have a Poly speaker.
Yep. So all the classrooms, you're going to have that Poly system. That Poly sound bar is going to serve as your audio for the classroom. So there is what looks like a little headphone jack that's connected to your smart panel. That's sending all the audio from the panel, whether it's the IQ, which is the built-in if you're watching a video on there, or your connected laptop. Either way, it's sending that audio to this speaker. So if you can't hear it out of that speaker, then that's definitely just one little point to double check that little headphone jack is plugged into the audio out in your panel and into the Poly system. If most of your rooms, it's all wall mounted, those things should really never move. So you shouldn't have an issue with that, but just always good to know where to check.
Okay, thank you.
And so those buttons that you're talking about, those will adjust the audio output level up and down. So you don't have to, you can control it primarily from there.
Great. So next over, so we have power, we have volume up, volume down, and free screen. So what free screen does is actually when you're connected with your computer, it will freeze what's on the board itself. Okay, so you press that, you'll see like a pause button. So let's say you wanted to check emails or enter in grades or go to your next presentation. You can do that without your audience, your students seeing what you're doing on the board itself.
So that's primarily when you have your laptop connected. If you were just using the panel itself, the freeze doesn't do anything, right?
Correct.
So if you're pressing it and nothing's happening, if you're on the built-in IQ source, that's not going to really function. It's just when you're using a computer.
Then to the left of that, we have something called screen shade, and screen shade is a way to kind of hide what's on your screen. So just a quick button, it hides what's there, and it doesn't matter whether your computer is connected or you're on our IQ built-in Android, it will hide that. Once you press the shade button again, it will then reveal what's in there. Okay. To the left of that is so that's the screen shade, and then we have input select. So like your TVs at home, you want to select which input you want to go to. So whether you're on the IQ or on your computer, you have an input select button here. Again, it's also on your remote. This is going to show you what's connected to your panel. So you see HDMI 1 is the laptop. It shows a preview of it, and that's where we were connected before. So that's fine. All you have to do is click the connection and get there. Now, where this kind of comes into play is to the left of that is a home button. Your home button is always going to take you to our built-in Android system. So when you're in your Android system and you want to go back to the laptop, there's a couple of ways to get there. You can press the input button that's on the panel, the hard button. On our home screen of the Android, there's also an input soft button that you can press. And again, it'll take you to the preview area and you can click on that input to get back to your computer.
And those inputs are numbered. You can name them. So if you're always going to use that particular input 1 for your laptop, you could actually rename it and just call it laptop. If you were going to connect other devices permanently, something like, sometimes people have an Apple TV or a Blu-ray player in their classroom, somebody donates or something like that, then that would be, a way to use these other inputs. Usually I see in the classroom, people are just using that one primary input. If you have a document camera that you wanted to route to the display directly via an HDMI cable, some of the older technology either uses USB or VGA. There is a VGA connection available too. So those are just ideas of other sources that you could connect to your panel. For right now, you're probably, and what we're focusing on today, is just navigating between the IQ, which is built in, and that one connected MacBook. But you do have the flexibility of having additional, just like at home, like Vincenza said, you have probably like an Xbox, maybe you have a Switch, you have a cable box, maybe you have an Apple TV. You're just changing what you're viewing when you access that content.
So in addition to renaming them and seeing them here, there's also little favorites or stars that you can do. So the easiest thing is if you star your main connection there, your main laptop connection, and then you click that home, there is a way to save, it's a favorite. It becomes a favorite on your home screen. So you don't even have to worry about going input HDMI 1. When you turn the panel on, because it defaults to the home screen here that you see, as long as you're signed into the board, and we'll talk about that, you can simply click HDMI 1 there in my favorites and go to it. So again, there's just different ways that you can kind of set things up for yourself. Okay. So we are connected with a computer right now. So this is what we're showing. We're actually showing the connected Mac laptop here. Okay.
I don't know if you have a dongle, like an adapter that I could show for the camera.
Is there one right? Is that one
It's
right there?
really fine if you don't, but
I'd
it's similar but different.
Okay.
So I'll just use this for a visual, but so when you connect your laptop, everybody should have one of these multi-port adapters. And this is what's going to allow you to connect to your MacBook and then out to the display. So from here, you should always have the power charging cable connected to, the power plug. And there is a port on there, and that will pass charging to your MacBook so that it's always charging when you're using it. And then there are 2 additional plugs on there, one for HDMI. That's going to send audio and video to your panel so that you can hear everything and see everything. And then the USB connection is also connected to that. And that's what's going to allow you to do what we're doing here, where we're touching it. and navigating your lessons. Instead of going to your laptop, you can do everything from the panel. So this adapter that you have, this multi-port adapter, all three of those things should be plugged in whenever you're using the smart panel. And so, like I say, I can't show you that over here, but that's all routed over to your TV. And with that, then you'll see that visual preview that we were just looking at, and everything will work well. So if for some reason you're seeing and hearing your laptop, but you're trying to touch things and nothing's interacting, double checking to make sure that that USB is also plugged in there is really important.
So once it's all connected, again, you're able to interact with your board for touch, okay? See what's there, and again, the audio is being carried. Just a couple of things about using, their laptop with the board. There is built-in software that's here, and that's smart. There's smart drivers that are installed, and what they do by default allow you to annotate. Okay, so when you pick up a pen, it's going to automatically write on the board. The panels themselves come with 2 pens, so 2 can write at the same time. The way you erase or move things is called object awareness. So it knows that the pen is going to write. Object awareness means that if I use my finger, it's going to move it. Okay, it's going to act as the mouse and be able to move the text around or any object that is movable there. And then if you would like to erase, you would either use the palm of your hand, or I like to make like a small fist. And then by that surface area, it knows to erase. Okay, so again, oops, pen is pen, finger is the mouse, and palm is erase. Not only can you do that, one person can do that, but you can have simultaneous tool differentiation. That's one of our things here. So one person can write and one person can move and do things at the same time. And I'm actually writing over this PDF, so it's making it a little bit difficult here, but you can do 2 different things at the same time, okay? Or 2 students can write. All right, so there's that ability to as well. We have the Smart Notebook program, so I'm just going to open that up. And that's a program I believe that gets used here. Okay, so I'm just going to maximize that. Ooh, actually put it into, where did I put? Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not a math person, sorry. I'm just trying to hit full screen. I guess we'll just do it this way. So again, the same concept, lives here in Smart Notebook. Where you can do that. I just want to go to the menu. It just puts it into this mode. Yeah. Oh, I see. I'm just going to pull it up here. Okay. And then again, if you're choosing your different colored pens, you would choose your different colored pens, and so on and so forth. So, and the pens are going to write in the same color that's chosen there on the board. Are there any questions about using it with Notebook? The focus here today is not really to dive into Notebook or Smart Ink or anything like that, but just to kind of show you the general functionality of the hardware.
So my understanding is that the smart drivers and Smart Ink and Smart Notebook are all going to be downloaded for the users on their laptops.
Correct.
Okay, so with that, that means that if you are using your laptop connection to the panel, you should be able to pick up a pen and write no matter what environment you're in. So if you're on a website, if you're in Smart Notebook, if you're looking at a PDF, regardless of where you are, that's one of the big pluses of Smart is their inking. And so that widget that Vincenzo just pulled over, that allows you to modify those characteristics, and that should work the same, no matter what you're looking at up here. You have different abilities of what to do with that inking, depending on what program you're using, but you will be able to annotate over anything. And then the other thing I just wanted to pick up with the connectivity with your laptop is just the rest of the poly, just so that people understand. We talked about the audio path. You also do have a built-in camera and microphone array built into that. So, God forbid we're teaching students remotely ever again, but maybe it opened up some opportunities to engage students, at other schools or, things like that for special opportunities. You do have that built in, and that is connected with a USB right to the panel. And then that passes it along to your laptop. So you don't have to plug that into your laptop directly. You should be able to view that. So like a Zoom today, that microphone and camera is selectable within Zoom to use from your computer. So you've really been set up with everything, you could possibly need here to be able to engage far end participants in your instruction, which is great. Back to Smart Ink.
Yeah, so back to Smart Ink. So as Sarah's mentioned in Smart Ink, I didn't go into it too much, but we do have a little widget that allows you to change colors. So again, I'm annotating over, a web browser. I'm able to freely do that, but I also can choose the tools that I want to use here, just like you can choose pen colors and other objects in Notebook. Smart Ink is one of those things where once you use it, you can clear it if you want to, and if you can save it as well. There is a very small circle with a pen in the upper right-hand corner that actually says clear ink or capture ink. So if I click capture ink, what it'll do is it'll take a picture of this page and it can send it to Smart Notebook itself. So then when you go to Smart Notebook, it will be in there as an object. Now, because this is a multi-touch panel, you can use features like pinch and zoom. So I don't know if you're used to doing that with older technology that you might have had, but again, it's multi-touch, so you can pinch and zoom, move things over pretty easily, just like you would on your phone.
So we do have that, because I haven't seen how do you put the widget up there?
So that's a great question. So the widget should automatically be there as long as you have the software installed, the drivers.
Yeah, I don't have that.
And sometimes to prompt it, if it isn't, when you pick up a pen, sometimes that will force the widget to open. If it's not on, you can make sure that Smart Ink is turned on in that system tray there.
Yeah, so up on the top here is where you should see the driver. So this is, and if you have it installed on your computer right now, if you're not connected, it would have a red X on it.
Yeah, I don't look.
It's not on
Nope.
notebooks.
So that would be that.
But
So
there
you-
are ways that we can,
Yeah, I was
we
just
can, there are ways you can annotate and do things with Chromebooks. It's through an online software that is part of it.
So we're going to be doing a follow-up training with that called Lumio. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but definitely that's going to be something of interest if you're using a Chromebook. That's going to really help you use all these tools more readily.
All right, but yeah, so the Smart System Tools is up on the top. Again, if you're not connected, it's gonna have a red X, but once you're connected, it recognizes the touch connection. You're gonna see it there. As Sarah mentioned, if you do not see the widget, which is this little round Smart Ink circle, then you could make sure you're clicking, show Smart Touch Inking Tool or hide it. Okay, so you have
Sometimes
that
people
option.
want to turn it off if you're doing something and it's distracting, or, I don't know if you remember the old Smart Ink, like it was like this bookmark on the side of your computer screen. And I was constantly moving that out of my way because I was like, you're trying to show something. So you do have the ability to turn that on and off, show it or hide it right up there.
All right. And again, Smart Ink will stay on your page. You can click not capture and then click clear ink, because that would be nice, quick, just clear it off your page and you're good to go. All right. So any questions that are out there regarding the computer and using the computer with the smartboard?
Just to back up super far, when you first turn your panel on, you are by default going to see this screen. So if your goal is to pick up with instruction with this new technology exactly where you left off with your previous technology, which might have been a projector, and you just want to see your computer, this is what's going to show up first. This is that IQ Android operating system that we're going to talk about next, I assume. But to get to that computer, just for workflow, like I said, like Vincenzo was talking through making it a favorite, that's probably a great first step if you haven't done that yet. So we're going to talk about signing into your panel. Once you sign into your panel, all of these favorites and customizations to this environment will save and follow you no matter where you go. So say you were bringing a classroom down to the library to do something and you've been using a panel in your classroom, you can sign into this panel and see everything exactly the way you do in your classroom. And so setting up that favorite, connecting that hardware, making sure that HDMI, USB, and the power cord are connected, and then navigating to that input either from the button down here, or if you've set it up as a favorite, that's how you get back to that computer environment that you're used to. Then you should be able to just pick up a pen and annotate if you want to, but that's a really great starting point. So if you haven't, if that's been, a bit of a hiccup so far, one of our goals today is just to make sure that that's comfortable for you. So if there's any questions about that, hopefully that's helpful and you'll have this video to look back at.
Okay, so thank you, Sarah. So let's get into when you turn on the board, how should you start? So I did want to start with the connected experience because that's what you're used to, right? You're used to connecting a laptop, using a laptop, accessing files. What happens when you pick up a pen, right? Again, if the smart system menu is on your MacBooks or laptops, you would just simply pick up a pen and go. And if you're used to using Smart Notebook, you can still keep on using those files and go with that. However, we do have a built-in Android system that has various features. And, one of which is a whiteboard. So it's a nice, whiteboard that you can kind of go in and there's various manipulatives and templates in there. We have apps, okay? And you can also synchronize files to it. So that's probably going to be a second part of the training is the synchronization of files. But the idea is that it can be in and of itself its own operating system and its own workflow that you can create. Very first thing, as Sarah mentioned, it's important to sign into the board. So where you do this is in the upper left-hand corner of the panel. When you turn it on, you'll see a V here. That's because I'm signed in. When you click on that, you'll see maybe an icon of just like a person, like a little person icon. So what you're going to do is you're going to sign in with your Google credentials. So you're going to click on sign in. And once you get there, a web screen is going to come up with your Google. You're going to click on that and you're simply going to sign in with your username, your email and your password that you normally access your drive with. Okay. So what does signing in do? As Sarah mentioned, signing in allows you to customize your experience with using the panel. It also allows you to do some file synchronization with your Google Drive and have, again, some favorites. Now, one of the things about favorites that I do want to clarify, okay, is once you set up your favorites on a particular panel, those favorites are going to stay. So if I've signed into your panel and I've made this HDMI one a favorite. If I come back in 2 months from now and I sign into your panel, that is still going to be there, okay? When I sign into a different panel for the first time, that I do have to set up my favorites once, okay? My favorites don't follow me, but my Google file synchronization follows you, okay? So those types of things follow you, but my favorites do have to be set up once on a panel and then it will remember it with the hardware, okay? I'll see here when I sign up on the screen, you see this QR code. This QR code, if you take a picture of it, is our training resource page online. So it's really useful, okay? So make sure you kind of click that. We'll also send you links to our training resources page, but that is just a quick link to that. So I've signed into the board. Now, once you sign into the board, there's a few things here in this little notification center. It talks to you about, some tips that are there. If there's an update, sometimes we give update information. These panels, if they're connected to the network, which they usually are, receive automatic over-the-air updates. So when there's a major update, while it's sleeping on the weekend or at night, if there's an update that comes through, it's going to update as long as it's connected to the network. It won't interrupt your class like when my computer just decides it wants to do updates.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, later, not now. It won't interrupt what you're doing. There's a few things to set up for your customizations. Okay, so I'm going to take you through an area called settings in the bottom left-hand side of the board. So we're going to click on settings. And again, as Sarah mentioned, how you want to get started with this board is kind of getting it customized for what you need it to do. Number one, setting up that, HDMI favorite. So in here, you don't have to go into a lot of things, but I want to kind of bring up a few things. So we have our network settings, we have customization with wallpaper. So if you want your background to be something different, we have some preloaded wallpapers, or you can add pictures from a USB drive. On the bottom left of the panels are additional USB connections and additional HDMI and touch connection as well. So with those USB ports, you can upload a file in here, or if you wanted to connect, let's say, like a Bluetooth keyboard, and it has like a little dongle, a receiver dongle, you can put the receiver dongle there and use it that way as well. So that's your personalization with wallpaper. And then we have some application settings. I'm going to go into Files Library. So Files Library is where you can allow either Google or OneDrive integration within it. Okay, so we have an area called Files, and there's some different folders. If you allow Google Drive integration in Files Library, which I'm going to turn on here, what will happen is when you go into our files, you'll see a link to Google Drive. So when you click on that, it's going to take you online directly to your drive. Okay, so just a quick step integration there. So you would want to turn this on. Again, this is one of those settings that will follow you. So if I sign into a board with a panel again, with a different panel, as long as I have this set up once, when I sign back in again, it's gonna stay on, okay? So what I'm showing is you just do the very first time, once you're signed into the board. Then we have Smart Whiteboard. So again, we have a whiteboard application. By default, it's gonna allow you to save whiteboards, share whiteboards. We have what's called finger inking. So we saw earlier when you pick up a pen, the pen is going to be the pen. When you use your finger, it's going to be the mouse. In certain environments, we might want to enable finger inking. So maybe multiple students can write with their fingers if they want to on the board, or do some different actions with the ink. So if you like that option, you would turn that on. Now in Whiteboard, you actually toggle that feature on and off as you need it. So it's not always going to finger ink, but as you need it, you'll be able to toggle it on. It's important though to set that setting here to on, because the board itself, the technology itself, recognizes the pen as the pen. We also have a feature called Enable Shared Whiteboard. So that is a feature that allows you to take the whiteboard and actually share it out to student devices. So that feature is by default turned on, and we'll show you how that works. Any questions so far? I don't know if there's any questions that come in chat or anything like that with the Zoom, so that's there. Screen share. So we have built-in screen share capabilities. So they're AirPlay, Google Cast, Miracast. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's the ability to wirelessly display something onto the board. So that's there.
That permissions piece, right?
Yes. Oh, permissions is important. So we have require permission. So when you're screen sharing, it depends on your environment. If it's going to be teachers wirelessly displaying, or if you want students to share maybe their Chromebooks up to the board, there's a feature here called require permission that should be turned on. And reason being is that you, as a teacher, you want to be able to control if a student decides that they want to share without you allowing them permission. And what will happen is a notification will come up to the board saying, Johnny wants to share their Chromebook. So you want to make sure you have that control to say yes or no to that. And pretty much those are the features that you want to kind of set ahead. So files library and allow Google Drive integration, Smart Whiteboard, enable finger inking if you'd like, and then screen sharing, again, making sure that it requires permission to have that control in your classroom.
And their launcher, just so you know, I think does not have the Chrome browser. Do you want to deselect that just so it looks like theirs?
Oh,
So
okay.
they're not using that. on
They're not
the
using the
iPad.
browser?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to press the home button and go back to the home, and we'll kind of navigate the screen here. So what you're seeing here on your dashboard or your main area here is what we recently have done. We just gone to an HDMI connection. You see your whiteboard, you see your HDMI. Okay. You sure we don't want the browser? I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
So they'll use the browser through their computer.
For their computer. Okay, great. So we also on the board on the bottom here, we have files. So I'm going to click files here. When we go to files, what's going to happen is you're going to see different, depending on what is signed in or where you're accessing to, different files. Now on the top here says My Files and Lumio. So Lumio is something that we're going to have a follow-up training on. It's an online Google integration that allows you to take files and bring them into Lumio and then make them interactive with your student devices. What's nice is that the files sync back and forth. So if you are signed in and you have a Lumio account, whatever you do here on the board and the whiteboard will synchronize up to your Lumio account online. And whatever you create in Lumio will synchronize back down to the board. So you essentially could prepare a lesson at home and via Google Drive. And then the next day, you don't even have to connect your laptop. Just have access to the lesson right directly from the board if you'd like. So again, that's a follow-up training, but just so you understand kind of what we're looking at
And
here.
it also, if I understand correctly, if you're using, which a lot of people after the last couple of years are using primarily Google apps. So if you're using Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Sheets, looking at it through Lumio gives you, many more of the smart tools and abilities to annotate, and kind of extends your abilities to use this new hardware within those files, as opposed to opening it through your browser on your laptop. Because, inking on the internet is just a little different than opening it or inking in a file, like a notebook file. So that is another plus to that Lumio platform that we'll get to, that you'll be interested in.
Quick question about that. Maybe this is for the IT folks. Do we have a subscription to that?
It's all under your smart account. So,
Because it tells me that I don't have a subscription and I can only save 50 megabytes of information.
so if you sign in with your Fall Mountain email address,
Yeah.
it should see that you are entitled to the
It
license.
did not.
Okay,
So
so,
you can put it real quick and we'll get it applied.
Yep.
for you.
All right.
awesome.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of getting, so if you're running into that situation where you're trying to sign into this and you don't have access to it, we just have to make sure that you're under the list of provisioned users, which you should be.
Everybody that has a panel should have access to all those tools. So,
Yeah, and thank you, Sarah. It is important to note that because, again, with Chromebooks and Google Drive, and a lot of questions get asked, hey, I have, a Google slide and I want to annotate, and when you're annotating, normally in a web browser, right, you're annotating one slide, and then you got to go to another slide. Well, you have to erase your annotations and go to another slide, right? When you bring it into our Lumio platform, what you'll notice is that it'll bring it into a format such that you can annotate slide by slide and save those annotations. And you can also add some enhancements.
and
to
it'll
it.
track as well. So if you have something that's larger than the screen and you're pulling it up or down in Lumio, that ink will stay with the content. So it's just, think of it as a smart controlled environment. It takes your Google content, doesn't force you to recreate anything. You can just pull it in for page, and then Smart is able to, allow more inking features and so forth.
So on the top here, we have talked about Lumio. We also have what's called board files. So board files basically is if you were not to sign into the board and you didn't have a synchronized account, the board would keep a memory of files that were created in it. Okay. And then we have downloads. So and I don't have anything here because I've never downloaded to this board, but I'll show you how you can do that. You can actually go into your Google Drive and download files to the board and then open them up in different applications or in a whiteboard. Okay. And then we have Google Drive. So Google Drive I went into those settings. I allowed Google Drive integration to files library. So this is what you're going to see here. When you click on that, it will go out to a web browser. Okay. And because I've never signed into the board here, into my drive into the board, I do need to do this one time. Okay, so I'm going to go in and do this. I forgot to do this ahead of time. This should just take me a second.
But you're totally not videoing your password.
What's that? You can see.
Totally not videoing you typing in your password.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should have done that ahead of time.
I
Oops.
paused the share, so you're good.
Okay, thank you. I typed it wrong. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of close it out just so you see what's happening again. So I'm going to go back into files. I'm going to go through that work process. So pretend I've already done this. I'm going to go in here. Oops. Go to Google Drive. I just brought up Dice. That's one of the widgets here. So let me just move that. For a second. Okay. So here's your Google Drive. So again, I understand that you may use the browser that's here is limited. Okay, it's a Chromium browser, so you may want to use your browser on your laptops. But again, for quick access to your drive, if you wanted to download something, you can. For example, I can take this PDF poster, I can download it, and then I can open it up into a whiteboard. I can mark it up if I want to. Okay, but that's the idea, is I can have quick access to my files. If I want to double click on them and open them in the browser here, I can. I just want to kind of quickly go over something. So you have that ability to do that. So when I go back home, I'm just going to show you. So I open my browser. I'm going to go into files. Just tap here to access your downloads folder. Well, it's already there. There is my little poster that I have. And I just clicked on it. And by default, it's going to open it up into a whiteboard application for me. So if I want to, I can then, write over it. And kind of work with it there. All right. So that's just a little bit of that. I'll get back to that in a second. So that's kind of how you can work with go to your Google Drive, download something and open it up.
And with that integration piece, it does automatically, did I just steal your thunder?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry.
No,
That, as a teacher, in your workflow, saving time, saving seconds as many times a day is always crucial. So once you set up that file sync integration, anything that you just did in Google Drive will automatically save there without you having to do anything. That's the beauty of Google Drive, right? Even if you open it with Lumio with that file sync, it will also save it within Lumio, and you'll be able to access that in multiple locations as well, which we haven't quite gotten to yet. But just so you know what you do, what you work with the file here at the panel, once you've enabled that, it will automatically save to Lumio, save to your Google Drive, and save to your panel. That version of the file there. So that's nice. It's all automated so that you don't have to remember to do that or take extra time to do that.
So moving
15
on from
minutes.
files, to apps. Okay, so apps is an area that's, oh, it's not enabled. I have to turn that on.
And I think we were going to not enable that right now.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on.
To be continued.
To be continued. And then screen share. Is this something that you're going to be looking to doing, screen share? Okay. So we have a couple of options with screen sharing, and actually we just had an update that just came out. So we can talk about that too. But we have what's called screen share app here. And with the screen share app, how this works is you can connect your device to the same network. As long as they're on the same Wi-Fi, you can wirelessly screen share. We do have a new option though with the latest update. It's called Smart Mirror. The Smart Mirror doesn't require the devices to have to be on the same network. So you have the option to choose one or the other. So that's one of the things that it takes you through instructions. It shows you where to download the Smart Screen Share app. You can either do it as an app or you can do it from built-in protocols, right? So MacBooks, AirPlay, right? So as long as your MacBook is on the same SAU60 network, you can share your screen via AirPlay to the board. If you have a Chromebook, you can Chromecast as long as they're on the same network. Sometimes we also have an app though for Windows, for Mac, for Chromebooks. And that app sometimes makes it a little bit easier to connect if it's on a different subnet. Okay, and what happens when you're using Smart Screen Share app, instead of just looking for the network, you're going to type in an IP address into the app, and that's going to connect.
And that's something that we can probably work with your IT folks to talk about what makes the most sense. There are a lot of options for wireless casting. For schools that are bring your own device and you as a teacher have, 5 different operating systems sitting in front of you, sometimes using the app controls the process so that it's predictable and it's the same process for every device. If primarily everybody's using Apple devices, then leaning on AirPlay is super comfortable for everybody and they're familiar with that. So there's definitely some more conversation we can have with your IT folks to help get the right information in your hands to make this effective. But just know that all operating systems are supported, depending on if you use the app or use that native protocol. And
Can we use the app even though we're not allowed to use apps?
Yes, that's a separate thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be an app on your MacBook.
And people often ask if people, one of the concerns we were talking about allowing permission to cast, people are worried about kids casting anytime. You do have to select the wireless button. Yeah, the screen share button.
Yes.
Sorry, I just had a little
Yeah.
brain book.
So you have
You
to
do
be
have
in
to do
screen
that.
share mode for it to happen. It's not
Yeah.
like you're gonna be teaching somewhere and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
boom, it's gonna throw it up on the board.
And
So
you
that's
can,
good.
when you leave that screen share environment, does it disconnect people that are sharing? Yeah. So
Yes.
if you're, you have a plan of kind of bouncing back and forth, if you go to your laptop, nobody can screen share. You would have to go back to that screen share app and then reconnect those. So just so you know, for workflow wise.
So one of the things is I signed into the board and the Smart Mirror is actually in a setting, and I'll send that information later. But I just got that information yesterday. There's assignment to the board. There's another important feature on the bottom. It's a lock feature. So let's say you have to leave your classroom for a little bit and you don't want anybody going into your files and things like that. We have a new lock screen feature. And I say it's new because it was our last update. So what you would do is you can keep your data safe. You would create a PIN to lock the display. And then that way, as long as you know the PIN, what that PIN is, and you would unlock the board. That's very important because sometimes students can get into your settings and change things around. They can rename your board. They can just do a lot of, a lot of things. So that's a kind of a little bit of a safety. Sometimes teachers are like, oh, I should sign out and then sign back in. Well, now you don't have to sign out because signing in, as you see when I sign into something, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm doing it from my keyboard, a wireless keyboard, you're up
I
at
call
the
it the
board.
display disco.
Yeah, right. And I like it because it has numbers and it also has symbols. It has a few symbols like a balloon, a rainbow. a
That's
shine.
something people have been asking for years.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So we just had that as a free update to the board itself. So that's good. All right. So what we're going to finish off with is we're going to talk about the whiteboard itself. How many minutes do we have?
About 12.
Okay, perfect.
Before we jump into,
Yeah.
we just had a question come in chat, going back to Lumio integration.
Mhm.
Brian Lloyd just wanted to confirm whether board files upload to Lumio Google Drive, assuming the user is signed into the board.
So if you're signed into the board, the whiteboard files that you do are you gonna sync up to your Lumio account? Okay. Files that you create in Lumio also sync back down to the board. They live in Lumio and Google Drive, but the board files simply go up to your Lumio account.
And once you sign into Lumio and
Yeah.
you've signed into your smart account and you've selected to file sync, it automatically creates a Lumio file in Google Drive, right? Where those things also live.
The board files don't actually go into your folder in Lumio,
Oh, okay.
but Lumio is an app in your Google Drive, so it's just a quick click
Okay.
and you're there. So, yep. We're always working on improving Google Drive integration, but there's sometimes Google doesn't want you to do things with their drive. So we do our
So
best.
before we dive in here, I just want
Yeah.
to say, so the whiteboard app is incredible. So if you are a person, so we have lots of users logged in, lots of people are going to watch this video. Some people are super excited to adopt as many tools as possible all at once. Other people have a lot on their plate and they're going to keep doing what they've been doing with their laptop and then maybe pick up a pen. If you're somewhere in between, or you're even one of those first people, jump back in if you've kind of zoned out a little bit. The whiteboard app is really accessible. It's very intuitive and it offers you some really quick tools to send content out to student devices. Just lots of very simple to deploy things to kind of, enhance what you're doing for instruction in the front of the classroom. So this tool, if my husband had it, he has an older smartboard. He was one of those people that was angry to get a smartboard because now he has to connect 3 things in open software in order to write something on the board. This is for you if that resonates with you.
All right, thank you. So turning on the panel itself, I'm just gonna kind of come over this side because it's where the controls are. So again, it can be whatever you need it to be, a convenience whiteboard, an interactive whiteboard. You have different page backgrounds. You have, lined paper, graphs and grids as well. So you can choose that. And then again, you're just writing on the board. Pens on the left-hand side here is your pen toolbar. So you can choose different colors. You can choose highlighter if you'd like to. And we also have what's the finger inking toggle. So again, the pen is the pen, your finger is the mouse, and you're erasing simultaneously, right? I can, like, scratching your head and covering your belly at the same time, right? So you can do simultaneous things as well, move things and whatnot. That all exists in here as well. We have what's called, so we have your regular pen, your highlighter, and we have what's called text pen. Text pen, when you write in text pen mode, okay? Just gonna write the word mode. It will take your handwriting and it will convert it to text. Okay, it's a feature that is found actually in our Smart Notebook software as well. So it's just one of those convenient things where if you want to clean up your writing, text pen will do that. So it's a little pen with a little typed A on there. Now, if we go to finger inking, if we toggle that on, that's going to make your finger, again, be able to ink, or fingers, right? Because we have multiple points of touch. You have up to 20 points of touch here on the board. But remember, if I want to move something, I can't unless I toggle it off. Yes, questions?
Does the text pen mode work with accents in other languages?
No, currently it does not. It does in Smart Notebook though. Smart Notebook it does.
Okay.
So you can change the language for the character recognition. So, and if you need information on that, just let us know. So that's kind of where we are with writing with pens. Now, I'm going to press a plus sign on the bottom here, and I'm going to open up a new page. I can open up a simple new whiteboard page, but I also have graphic organizers here, okay? And I know we just added some as well recently. So we have all of these here. We have, your simple brainstorming web, but we also have, we've just added sports and things like that on the bottom here, or XY axis graph and whatnot. Okay, so we just added these, so you can use these as your background and write on that. In addition, okay, we have, I'm just going to click whiteboard again. We have the ability to add images and videos on the fly. So we have a little icon here where you can search the web for, I'm just going to do landmarks because it's an example that we use. Okay, so we can look for landmarks and images will come up. And then you can throw the image in there. So there's no need to go to a browser or anything like that to search for an image. At the same time, I have images here, I have videos. It will do a YouTube video search, safe search, no created, no commercials or related videos. So if you find, a video that you want to watch, you can just throw it in there and then you press play, it goes to full screen, and then you can play the video here. All right, so again, videos on the fly. So images, videos from the web. You can also download images from your Google Drive in here, and they'll put them into a gallery. And this is the pre-made gallery right now of some images, but your downloads will go in here as well. Below that, we have, if you have a document camera connected, you can also access images from a camera. So right now, it doesn't, I can say allow camera access device. It might recognize the poly. So it could do that, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, but the idea is that you can do that if you'd like. Just go back. Okay. Below this, we have widgets. So I actually brought up a widget earlier. We have clock, dice, timers, spinners, and rulers and protractors. So these are things that you can bring up on the board. And actually, ooh, this came in March. Okay, but you can actually customize it. Wow, that really, it's you can resize it. The dice is a little bit out of control today. But the idea is that you can customize it. And I don't know why it's so big.
You were zoomed in on the notepad to begin with.
Oh, okay.
See how you're way zoomed in?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
happens.
But the idea is that you can, I'm not going to try to unzoom right now. The idea is that you can go in and customize your dice. It's somewhere down here. So you can do that, customize your dice, make a multiple dice, add letters to them, write words on them, and so on and so forth. And these actual widgets, if I go outside for a second of the file itself, the widgets are also accessible here on your main screen. So if you just want to do a timer, you want to time students on something, rotations or something like that, you can put a timer up there or do a spinner and use that there. I'm going to go back into my file here. Okay. One of the things too, just and how many minutes we have, I just like to make sure I'm on time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So one of the unique things about this as well is the ability to interact with students. So we have something called a shout it out. And so a shout it out is a activity where students would sign in and connect with the panel, and you can ask the question and their answers will come up on the board. Okay, so if I click start for class, the idea here is that you're signed into the board, and because you're going to have your own account, you're going to have an ID code that follows you no matter where you go, wherever you sign in. Okay, and how students would sign into the board is there's a little participant icon in the top left. They would go to Hello Smart. This is my 6-digit code that follows me anywhere I go, okay? 390930. So if a student were to join my class, or they can join by scanning a QR code if they're in class, they would be able to send a response up to the board. Yes,
Is that 6-digit code your class ID in Lumia?
yes, it is. Yes, the exact same code in Lumio. Very good question. So yeah, so they would join that and they'd be able to interact with that. Not only can I do a shout it out with the class, okay, well, shout it out is basically ask a question and answers come up at the board. But if I wanted to at any point, I could take any page, okay, if I click start session, I can say, okay, I'm going to convert this page to an activity. I can make it a handout, or I can make it a group workspace where it splits up the students to work on the board, or I can make it a whole class whiteboard where everybody contributes to it. So with individual handouts, what will happen is each student will get a digital copy of the page that I'm showing. And whatever they do on their copy, I am going to get individual results. It's like a Near Potter or Pear Deck type of concept. Okay, with that in mind. So that is another thing. So again, you have the ability to take your whiteboard that you're created on the fly and share it out to your student devices. Lumio is our platform that allows you to take content that you prepare ahead of time and also do a lot of that with there, plus some other features. So that's a general concept of this whiteboard. Again, so one of the things to keep in mind is the big question is this file is called 52422, right? I can rename that file. But if I go back to my computer, I'm going to show you my drive or my Lumio account, okay? Just so you see this. And I have my Lumio account open somewhere.
So in high school, I envision that there are definitely going to be some classes where there's a lot of note taking, right? So that ability to be able to share the notes that you're taking through whiteboard at the panel with your students, not only do you probably have a few students that in their IEP or 504 require to see whatever's at the front of the room in front of them on the device, but everyone's more engaged when they can see the content closer to them. So if you have an environment where students have devices and you're using the front of room display for that note taking with multiple pages, just sharing that out to them is incredibly valuable. But also being able to turn those things into activities that they can then interact with and send up to the board. But also this piece that Vincenza's pulling up, the next question, as soon as everybody sees this, is usually, well, how do I get that content to then save or distribute later?
Yeah, and that's where it is. So I quickly went into my Google Drive, went into my Lumio app, and here is the file. So I am now on my computer right now. I am not on my IQ whiteboard. So here is the file that we were just working with. I think it's still loading. Let's go back. Lumio. Okay, it's still reloading. All right, but the idea. All right, so I just want to go into my Lumio app here. Maybe I didn't give it. It was a little ladybug.
So presumably, if you have access to that via your Google Drive or Lumio, you can upload that, share it, distribute it through Google Classroom as reference notes. Certainly for people that weren't there, but also for people that were there. Just like we're recording this for reference later for you, having your students have the ability to recall that information at a later date is awesome.
Yeah, so again, the file is here. Just really quickly, I can take that file. I could actually share a link to that file to either another teacher or a student. So to miss that lesson, they can do that. Or I can make a copy and kind of have another copy for the next day.
Like we said, Lumio is something that we're going to follow up with. We're going to definitely do some virtual training for you so that we can all sign in and take a look at how to actually, engage the Lumio platform maybe more heavily than right now, but that's going to be a huge tool to help accentuate what you're already doing in Google.
Yeah, so I realized that we gave you kind of like the quick overview. The whiteboard is really quick, but that's just the general idea of that. We do have, what's great is that we do have training pages that we will send you that have 2-minute videos of each feature. Like, oh, how do you do this in whiteboard? Or how do you do this with screen share? Or how do you access files? So we're gonna send you links to those pages so that even after you watch this, like, well, I wanna do that, but I don't know enough for this session today. Let me learn more, go to that site. Any questions?
Thanks, Lynn. So today our goal was to make sure that people with this new technology know how to pick up where they left off with their previous technology. So people are used to navigating their instruction from their MacBook, mirroring that on perhaps a projector and a smart board. And so with these new interactive flat panels, we just wanted to make sure that we got in front of everybody for a lightning hour. It's going to be a lot of information, but just to make sure that everybody understands what they're looking at with the panel. There's some built-in functionality here, how to navigate to your laptop content and kind of move back and forth and what the capabilities and pluses and minuses are to doing so, as well as the integrated equipment with the poly soundbar, which is going to serve as a speaker, as well as a microphone array and a camera, how all of that connects to the panel, how to kind of navigate the hardware. And then just a little snippet of all the tools that you're going to have access to. There's a lot of layers to this system. So today is an introduction to all of the hardware so that it's not as intimidating. I know it's been in your classroom for a bit now, but kind of, catching any of those questions that you might have had leading up to now, so that then you're ready to move forward and kind of dive deeper into the software offerings and the application offerings that we'll definitely do with follow-up later on. So it's not just what happens today. Today is meant to be an introduction and make sure that you understand the hardware that's in front of you and how to navigate that, do some basic troubleshooting, and then we'll definitely dive deeper into those software applications later on. So,
Vincenza, thank you, Sarah. So when you turn on your board, okay, so when you turn on your board, you're going to see this screen, okay? And one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to want to get to your computer screen. So I'm going to actually, I normally start from the computer screen, but this is what's going to happen. You're going to come into your computer screen, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get to your laptop, okay? So one of the things we're going to do is I'm just going to click input, and we're going to go into the computer screen. Okay, I'll go through that, how I did that, but I just want to kind of get started there. So again, when you're connected to your computer, this is what we want to start with. And the reason being is that this is what you might be used to doing, right? Is connecting to a computer and interacting with it. So before we kind of get into that complete interaction, we want to talk about the panel itself, right? So this is the SmartBoard MX RV2 version. And we want to talk about some buttons that are on the board, how you can control it, how to write and erase on the display, okay? And then be able to use what's also the built-in IQ Android feature of the board. So that's what we're going to do our overview on in this hour today. So first of all, turning on the board, you have a remote control, but we also have a power button. So we have these buttons here. This is actually a quick user guide poster. I don't know if you've seen this. It's something that you can print from our website. We can also send you a link to it so you have it handy. So there's a power button. The power button is located on the bottom right of the panel. The power button is really meant to kind of do a quick on and off. It's a kind of like a sleep mode. It is energy efficient. So if you power it down, it will not use energy. It puts it to sleep. In addition to the power button in the front, there is a rocker switch that's located in the back of the panel underneath a section to where the actual power cord is plugged in. So underneath that, there's a rocker switch that goes on and off. So sometimes if you go to power it on, and actually, you'll know if there's power coming to the board because there'll be a light on the display. But if you don't see a light, maybe that rocker switch is turned off. So you can turn that off and on. Sometimes if the board freezes or does something wonky, right, turning it off, turning it off and on also helps. Keep in mind when you do the rocker switch off, there's a feature of the board where you're signed in. You can sign into the board, and we'll show you that. When you rocker switch it off, it signs you out automatically. Okay, so it resets, it signs you off. So just kind of keep that in mind. As Sarah mentioned, there is a poly camera studio system here. Okay, and that's where your sound is going to come out. So Sarah nicely mentions how there's an audio out cable. So I'll let Sarah talk about that.
You have some connectivity. If you're looking to use your laptop through this display, you do have to connect some cabling. So there are going to be 3 cables that are going to plug into your laptop, and most likely with your MacBook, you have a multi-port adapter that looks something like this. So this is going to have a few different things. One connection connects to your laptop, and then there are going to be 3 things to connect to this. One of them is your charging cable. So the nice thing is, you know, even though you're using this for audio and video to your panel, you can also be charging your laptop at the same time. So having that charging cable connected to that USB-C on here and then plugged into the power outlet nearby is integral to actually powering the technology that's happening in this adapter too. There's also going to be an HDMI and a USB cable, and that's going to allow you to completely control your computer at the display without going over to that laptop keyboard at all if you don't want to. The HDMI is where your audio and your video come through. And then the USB cable is what's going to give you that touch interactivity to be able to engage with the content. It's also what's going to make sure that your pens are working and communicating with your computer. So if for some reason you can see and hear your computer content, but the pens aren't working and the touch isn't working, that's associated with that USB cable. So all of the ports that are on this multi-port adapter need to have a partner cable connected to it for that to function. What we also do is have an audio output from the panel to this speaker that you have, so that no matter what you're looking at or what you're hearing, I should say, at the panel, whether it's coming from your computer that's connected, or if it's the onboard built-in source, or if you have something else plugged into your display, like a Blu-ray player or an Apple TV or something like that, no matter what audio is coming to the panel, it's going to be coming out this speaker. So if for some reason you can't hear the audio coming through that speaker, there is a physical cable. It looks like a little headphone jack that's coming on the audio output of the panel and is plugging into that USB soundbar. There's also a USB cable going from there to your computer, to your panel, and that's passing the microphone and camera to your connected laptop. So there's a lot of things kind of interconnected here that are all routing through this new TV that you have. So making sure that these 3 connectors are connected to your laptop will make sure that all of those other components are all working properly. So because of the way this is put together, if you're hosting a Zoom meeting or a Google Meet on your laptop and it's connected to this, you'll be able to use that camera, those microphones, and that speaker with what you're doing in your classroom.
So because the audio is coming out of the board into your Poly Studio here, you can control the volume from the board. And you can either control it through a remote control or on the panel itself. There's going to be a volume up and down. So the buttons down here on the right are reflected in here in this page here. So volume up, volume down. So those are your volume controls there. Some other buttons that we have on the front, freeze screen. So freeze screen, if you might have had this functionality with a projector previously, it's the ability to freeze what's on your computer display. And then if you needed to go check email or open up a different file or enter a grade, you can go and do that on your laptops without your students seeing what's happening on the board. Whatever's going to be there is going to stay frozen on the board. Once you're ready to kind of get back and sync back up, you would just simply press the pause or freeze button again, and it will play whatever's active on your computer screen. Okay. Then we have screen shade. So screen shade is a way to kind of hide what's on the panel itself, whether your computer is connected or whether you're using the built-in Android system. It's just simply going to kind of put a shade up on the screen or mute the screen, the visual part of it, and then you can press the shade button again, kind of bring it up.
I always say engagement is everybody's problem. So if there's a flashing light screen behind you, at least 50% of your class is going to rather look at that than you, right? So if you want to kind of queue up what you have for content, but draw the attention to something else first before you reveal it, that's a great tool to use.
Yes. Next to that, we have input select. So input select is what I actually clicked on earlier to get to a different input here. So when I press input select here, it's going to show me what's connected to the board. So the board itself has different physical connections. It has HDMI 1, 2, 3, and VGA. Right now, the laptop is connected to HDMI 1, and it shows a preview of what's there. They are labeled as HDMI 1, 2, 3, and VGA. However, they can be renamed. Okay, so you can name this laptop. I actually put that in made it active. Let me go back. I can rename this laptop, or if I have a Blu-ray player or an Apple TV or a document camera, I can name that conveniently so that I know where I'm going next. Not only can I name them, but I can also favorite them. So if you'll see here, my HDMI 1 has a little green star that's highlighted, okay? What that means is that when I go to my home screen, so I'm going to press the home button here. This again is the screen that you see when you turn on the panel. It's going to be in a favorites area. Favorites are also associated with signing into the board, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But what's nice is that when I turn on the board, because it's HDMI 1 is a favorite, I actually don't have to go to input and select HDMI 1. I can simply just click here and it'll go right to my laptop that's connected. Any questions? Okay. So talking about the connected experience. So we've gone through the buttons here. Now, when you're using your board, again, your finger is the mouse. So you have two pens that are on here. The way the pens work is that when you write with a pen, it's going to write, okay? As soon as you start writing, if you have your smart software, it's only going to write if you have smart software installed, and your smart system menu is going to be found in the top of your screen here. You're going to have this little smart ink toolbar that comes up. So when you click on that ink toolbar, you're going to be able to access different color pens. Oops, and I actually just changed my screen by accident. Okay, so I can access different colors if I want to. To be able to erase, the piece panels have what's called object awareness. So object awareness is it recognizes the pen as the pen. Your finger is actually going to act as the mouse to move things around. And then the palm or side of your hand can act as an eraser to the board. Okay. So pen is pen, finger is mouse, and then palm is eraser. Not only can you do that, you know, single person can do this, but you can have what's called simultaneous tool differentiation, meaning that Sarah can write, I can write. If I want to move something, I can move something while she's writing. Okay, so you can have multiple students doing multiple actions at the same time up on the board. Now I am simply just annotating over an image, right? This poster. I can, you know, keep on working on this. If I wanted to save this, because I'm just basically writing over a web, I have the ability to do a screen capture of this. And the ability to capture is found in a little circle tool here, is a little pen, and it actually says capture ink. So when I click capture ink, it allows me to send it to what's called Smart Notebook, or also kind of copy and paste it someplace else. If you're familiar with Smart Notebook, I can send this page to Notebook. It'll launch it or open it into the program. Okay, oops, it just kind of opened and closed on its own. But the idea here is that I can take a screenshot and then save it later. So Smart Ink is one of those, again, programs that can be used anywhere on your board. The toolbar just simply comes up. Any questions?
So that's a great step one. If you haven't used much with the panel yet, you know, navigating over to your computer, opening up that content that you're presenting, whether it be from Notebook or the web or PDFs or Google apps, and then that ability to pick up the pen and annotate over anything. If you want to work with that later, being able to capture that annotation and then sending it to Notebook or sending it as a saved file or somewhere else that makes sense, that should all be, you know, really accessible for you right from day one.
So I can also clear the ink pretty easily. I don't have to erase everything. I can simply click the circle and click clear ink and everything will go away. Just to kind of bring up Smart Notebook, because again, this is our desktop software that we do have. Smart Notebook, the way it will work. I'm just trying to expand this open a little bit. That's okay. Again, you will be writing here. If you want to choose different tools that are on the board, you can choose different tools. You want to choose a shape, you can choose a shape. You can use your finger and also activate, you know, tools from there as well. So you have the ability to simply interact with it. It's again, multiple students can be doing multiple things at the same time. And the nice thing is if your finger shows something and the pen shows something else, you can do two different things on the board at the same time.
And that software will ask you to sign in. That might be a new process if you didn't have up-to-date software previous to this. So just know that your Smart account, when it asks you to log in, is your Fall Mountain Schools email. So that is a Google domain. email, that is what you would sign into Smart software with. It's also what you would sign into Lumio with when we talk about that. So it's all the same single sign-on. It's also what you sign into your panel with, which we'll talk about very shortly. So. And if you, for some reason, don't have access to that, if you sign in and it says that you aren't being recognized as a user, just let your, put in a ticket for your IT group and they'll make sure that you get access to that.
Thank you. So those are the basic ideas with connecting your board, is making sure your connections are there, your HDMI and your USB for touch, your smart software that allows you to smart ink over different applications, and then the ability to use your smart notebook with your pen or your finger. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to press the home button and we're going to go back to the built-in system. So again, your workflow that you're used to is using a connected laptop, most likely in your classroom. So you're used to that and you can still continue to do that. We're going to show you what's built into the system, which is our Android system. And in the Android system, we have some different features, the ability to synchronize your Google Drive so you can quickly access files that are online if you'd like. We also have the ability to do wireless screen sharing. So the ability for either you to AirPlay to the board, or maybe for a student to Chromecast and showcase their work up on the board. There's different ways that can be done. And we also have a feature-rich whiteboard that we'll do an overview on today. And in that whiteboard, there's templates built in. You can share the whiteboard out to student devices so they can interact with it. But also, we have this online Lumio account that we'll do, that you might have had training on, but we'll also do additional training on because there's been updates that come up every so often that allow you to either create files in the cloud and synchronize those back to the board, or actually the whiteboards that you create on this board will also synchronize up to your Lumio account. Okay, so there's this back and forth synchronization with your files. So to get started, okay, if you haven't done so, I know you've had your panels, I think probably since
I think you guys got them installed over like February-ish.
It was started in January, but
Okay.
it took till like
a while.
March,
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a process, right? So one of the things about the board that you want to do is in the upper left-hand corner, one of the things you want to do is sign into the board. Okay, so in the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see a B, and that's for me, that's Vincenza. I'm signed in. I'm signed in with my Google credentials. So once you get there, you might see a little people icon type of thing. So you'll click on that and you'll click sign in. And then as long as you're connected to the web, a web browser will come up and it'll have you sign in with your Google credentials. So you'll type in your school email, your password, and you'll be set to go. What does signing in do for you? Signing in allows you to create a customized environment for your panel. It allows you to have favorites. Okay. It also allows you to have set certain features that you may want to use that we're going to talk about with our settings. All right. So again, first things first is you sign into the board and sign into the panel. All right. And then we're going to talk about some settings that you're going to want to set, that you may want to set ahead of time. So when you click on settings, okay, there's the network that's there. There's wallpaper. So if you'd like a special background, you can choose from preloaded pictures that we have, or it says you can add pictures from a USB drive. We talked about on the bottom right where we have control buttons. On the bottom left of the board are some additional inputs for HDMI and touch, but we also have 2 USB port inputs. So you can put a USB drive into the board input and upload an image if you'd like to. Okay. We also have some application settings, and there's about 3 or 4 settings I'm going to go over with you. So first, launcher. Okay, so we have launchers. We're going to have screen share as an option. Then we have files library. So files library is where you could allow either Google or OneDrive or both integration. Files library is an area that you're going to be able to select either synchronized files that you go to, have a quick link to your Google Drive if you'd like, or also have a quick link to downloads that you may download to your panel as well, because you can download files to it. So allowing Google Drive integration, if you'd like that quick one step to Google Drive from your files library, you want to turn this feature on, and that you would just do that once and it will remember that feature on that board. Okay. If you're a teacher that goes from one classroom to another, when you sign in once the board and you customize your settings, that board will remember your settings and follow you along wherever you go. Okay. So if I come back here in a couple of months to do additional training and I sign in, it's going to remember that I've selected Google Drive integration. All right. Then we have a smart whiteboard. So again, we have this application, and in the application, by default, most of the features are turned on except for one, which is called enable finger inking. So we saw very quickly that the pen is always going to be the pen, right? And your finger is going to be the mouse. In our whiteboard, it acts the same. However, we have a feature that can allow you to have finger inking if you would like to. So if you'd like your students to use your fingers as to ink, you can enable that on here and then toggle that feature on when you're in whiteboard, and we'll show you that today. We also have a feature called enable shared whiteboard. That is a feature that's important, that can be important to turn on. It's an actual feature that allows you to take whatever is on your whiteboard, share it out for student devices, and have them write all over it, and that information will come back to the board itself. Okay, so those are two features. Everything else, annotation layers and things like that normally stay on and normally don't interact with that much. Screen sharing. So as I mentioned, there's the ability to wirelessly screen share to the board. And we have a few different ways to do that. And it has actually built in Apple AirPlay. So if you're using Apple Apple products, you can AirPlay up to the board. It has, Google Cast and things like that as well. One of the features that's not turned on usually when you're on the board is something called require permission. Okay, so this require permission is that function where, let's say a student wants to wirelessly display up to your board. Did I do something? What happened? What happened there? I don't know. Okay, then. That was interesting. I went to screen share mode automatically, but let me go back to settings. Okay. So require permission. The teacher is in the classroom and Sarah wants to share her Chromebook. Well, Sarah may just want to share it because she just likes to share, but we don't want Sarah to share. So we want to make sure the teacher has the control to say yes or no to that sharing. Okay, so requiring permission is an important feature for classroom management. All right. And so those are basically the features that you want to focus on here for your settings. Files library, allowing Google Drive integration, smart whiteboard, allowing finger inking and shared whiteboard, and then screen sharing requiring permission. All right, so those are that. Any questions?
And just an idea, so somebody asked me why that's an option, that like why it doesn't just default to being on. And one of the scenarios is, some people choose to install this equipment in like a principal's conference room or a special education setting where perhaps you want that ease of sharing. You don't want somebody to be standing at the display to have to okay it every time. So if it's a space that you're using for meetings and you want people in the meeting to be able to share and unshare without having somebody stand at the board, or if you just want to ease that process for users to not have to, be at the panel to do that, that's, just an idea. But that's definitely something that, turning that on is helpful for the general classroom use.
Really quick, during the setup process, that was turned on. So it is on every one of them now.
Okay, so
Perfect.
maybe somebody from your team turned it on.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. All right, great.
Actually, they self-installed, so it would
Okay,
be all
We did it
them.
you did it yourselves. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So kind of just going back to the home button. So let's take a look at some of these areas. So we have on the bottom, there's 4 buttons here. One is files. So that's the files library area. So when you're in your files library area, there's different sections to it. Think of it like, you're going to my documents and you have different folders. So in my files here, under my files, again, I'm signed in, I have Lumio. So Lumio is related to our online software. It's built into our Google Drive. It's the ability to take files, Google Docs or slides, PowerPoints, notebooks, and bring them into a platform that can have you deliver your lessons on your board and also have your students engage with it synchronously or asynchronously. Anything that you create in Lumio and Google Drive, within Google Drive, synchronizes to your board. So I have lessons here, for landmarks and things like that, or some other pieces here. So they synchronize back. In addition, when we use our whiteboard application, and you're signed into the board, it also saves your whiteboard files here, and they also synchronize on up to your Lumio account, which again is also linked as an app through your Google Drive. Okay, so there's a synchronization back and forth. Below the Lumia, we have board files. So typically I don't have any board files because I'm always signed in. Board files usually live in boards that are not signed in. Okay, there's just files that kind of live on the board. Then we have downloads. So earlier I went into Google Drive, I downloaded a PDF. I'll show you that process, and the downloads live there. Downloads usually can be integrated into your whiteboards or opened into your whiteboard one way or another, or they can be opened with different applications if you'd like. Then below downloads is where my Google Drive showed up. So because I turned on that Google Drive integration in my settings, I will see Google Drive here. So what this acts as is a quick link to my Google Drive. Now, the very first time you do that, you are going to need to sign into your drive. But after that, as long as you're, you haven't reset your board by rockering it off, it's going to just keep on going to your Google Drive. So again, most of the time, it opens it up into what's called the Chromium browser. So just keep that in mind. Files may look differently when you open them in Chromium browsers versus your laptop browser. So for the most part, if you're going to work in a browser, you're going to definitely want to work with it from your MacBooks or your laptops. However, if I go into Google Drive and I say, you know what, I really want to kind of go and download this little algebra worksheet. So what I can do is I can, I'm pressing and holding, and I'm going to do press and hold as a right click, and I'm going to click download. Okay. And I can download a file, PDFs and images, upload into our whiteboard, or I can download a PowerPoint if I wanted to and open it up in an app. But once it's downloaded, I can go back home. I can go back into my files, and it'll be in my downloads file. PDFs by default, if I click on them, don't need a separate application to open it up. They actually open up in our whiteboard application. And here, if I wanted to just simply work on this one-page PDF and I wanted to review, units of measure with my class, I can review it, I can circle it, I can write on it, and kind of show that PDF to the class. And if it was a multiple page PDF, obviously all the pages would load separately, and then I'd be able to kind of go through each page and be able to write on each page, with class involvement. All right. Any questions?
When on the whiteboard, like when you create a document and it comes up with like the date on it, if you hold it down like you did, will that allow you to rename it?
Yes. 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 So yes, thank you for bringing that up. And because you asked that question, I'll just quickly go into files here. So when I'm in my Lumio files, and yeah, it has the date here. Oops. Yeah, you have to press and hold it a certain way, and they'll rename the file. Go back to that. Let's see if I can click on it in the right way. Oh, it's not opening it up. But there is definitely a way to click into it. Do you know? Let's see. I'm not having the right touch. Yeah, so it's just basically.
Should do files rather than.
No, you can go in there and you can click on it. I'm just, for some reason, I'm not. Oh,
There you go.
there you go. You just have to actually click on. I'm actually clicking on
I
the
mean, not on the words.
not on the words, and then go in there and then you can type into that. Or you can delete it again. You also, because it synchronizes up online, you can also rename it online. So later you can just go to your Lumio account instead of going through this and just rename it there. Okay. I would suggest that. That way you're not fidgeting around with things. So thank you for that question. Okay, so that kind of covers a little bit of file management there. There's an apps area, but right now we're going to leave that be. Input. So again, input, then we have an input button on your hard button. We have an input button here. If you have something else, again, you want to get to that's not favorited, you can go to your input section that way. All right. And then we have screen share. So just to talk about screen share a little bit. Screen sharing, we have two different options. The default option on your boards is what's called our smart screen share. And there's also something called Smart Mirror, which we recently introduced, and we'll be working with your IT department to figure out the best solution for you. But the way screen sharing works is if your device is on the same network, so SAU60, you can look for the board on there. And you can either do it via Apple AirPlay a Chromecast or Windows or Android, depending on what device you're using to share with. If you find it, it'll share up to 4 different devices. You choose one at a time, okay? Or you can connect with Smart Screen Share app on your device. So there's an app that can be downloaded on your device. Sometimes the app, certain schools will find that the app works better, or sometimes certain schools will find that the Simple Connect works better. Just depends. And that again is up to you. I would say your IT department to figure out the best protocol for you. But with the app, instead of looking for your board name, you're going to type an IP address, and the IP address is going to find the board. How that helps with the IP address is that sometimes you have student devices are on a different subnetwork of a teacher device. And so that IP address helps kind of bridge the gap and allow you to connect, allow a student device to connect to it if they're on the same network.
If you want to use screen sharing, you do have to be in the screen sharing environment. So that's something that a lot of people ask. If you're on your computer, if you're mirroring your computer, or if you're in whiteboard, or if you're at that home screen, nobody can wirelessly screen share until you actually select the screen share app. In this environment, now it opens up that ability for people to connect. And again, with that permission setting, you would see a little pop-up that says, you know, Johnny wants to share his Chromebook right now. Would you like to let him? And you hit allow. And then that would be one of those users that can connect. And you can have multiple people connected at a time. And you can kind of go back to this space and move from person to person. But as soon as you leave this environment, if you toggled, like if you hit input and went back to your HDMI connection, now everybody's disconnected. So you can't go back and forth between different locations.
That kind of covers the screen share. One of the things before I get into whiteboard, because that'll be the last thing I kind of go over, is I want to mention that we are signed into the board. If a teacher needs to leave the classroom and they don't want their students to access their settings or any of their files, there is a lock function on the bottom left corner, which is one of our newer features. So what you would do is you would just enter in a 4-digit PIN at any time, okay? And it could be a combination of numbers and symbols, and you would set that. So when you want to come back to the class, you just punch in your 4-digit PIN and you'll have access to your board. So you don't have to sign in and sign out. If you want to sign out, there is a sign out feature. It'll sign you out of the board. It'll also, if you're logged into anything, it'll log you out. But that's kind of a nice little security feature that we recently added in an update. Also, we have a QR code here. This QR code, if you open it up with your camera, will take you to our training website with training resources. So you want to look at that.
Is anything accessible when it's locked? So can someone get to like a whiteboard, or they just can't get to
They
anything?
can't get to anything. If you forget your PIN code, the rocker switch reset will
Good to know.
will reset you. So that will.
And you set that every time?
Huh?
So every time you walk it, do you put it in a pin?
No, you set it once.
You just set it once? Okay.
Yeah, it'll remember what you set last time
Gotcha.
unless you decide to change it. In there, but yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go into whiteboard. So again, the whiteboard is something where if you're a teacher that wants to, literally goes into your classroom and starts writing on a whiteboard and you want to start writing, this is easy for you. You don't have to turn on it. You don't have to go on your computer, open up a program, do that. Just simply turn on the board and click on whiteboard. But not only does it do simple whiteboarding, but it has multiple features to it. So number one, you have background settings. If you want lined paper or grid paper, you can choose your background setting. And everything is kind of located in the left-hand side of the board. Again, you would pick up your pen and start writing. You have your little pen tool area where you can choose different colors. You can choose different thickness. You can choose highlighters. And you also have something called text pen. So text pen is something where if I start writing a word, I'm going to try cursive this time. I don't know what's going to happen. So after a few seconds, it's going to convert it to text. Oh, close. Okay, not really. So the idea is that though it can, recognize what you're writing. So depending on how you form your characters. So you do have text pen. Again, it's a convenience type of feature. Use it at your will. We also have what's called, remember we enabled finger inking. So that feature is in here. You would toggle, there's a little hand here with the finger. So it's a feature that's optional while you're using whiteboard. So what happens is, let me actually go back. So remember your finger is the mouse by default. So when I go to finger inking, your fingers become ink. And because it has 20 points of touch, I can, I can do all sorts of inking on the board. That's a really nice masterpiece. I did there.
That Zoom thing again.
Oh, we did the Zoom thing again. Okay. All right. So I'm going to actually add a new whiteboard, a new feature. What is it? Why is it zooming on me? Interesting. Okay. The board itself, the whiteboard itself pans. So if you touch on a space, you can actually have unlimited whiteboard space and move it. So that's kind of what happened there. All right, I'm going to add a new whiteboard space. I want a new page. I'm going to press a plus sign and I'm going to go up to whiteboard. All right, so I can add a new page. In addition to adding new pages, there's actually built-in graphic organizers and templates. So if I want to do a Venn diagram, I can bring up a Venn diagram and bring that up on the board and start writing if I want to. Okay. I also have manipulative, so pages that have interactive features on there as well. So like if I wanted to do sort shapes with the littles, I can do that, and they have, you know, kind of repeatable objects. You know what it is? It's my blouse. It's my blouse. See this
I
little
was
thing
wondering if
in
that
my
was what
blouse?
it was screen.
It's actually, you know, when I was getting dressed today, I was like, I'm wondering if my blouse is going to interact with the
Now
board.
you know.
So now I know. So just a word to the wise, if your board starts acting funny and you have fluffy sleeves.
We have seen that with some features with very large bracelets.
Yes, yeah. So just so you know, it has that sensitivity to it. Okay. I wore this blouse on purpose so I can show you that. I wish I could say that. So in addition, so you can do that. You also have the ability, and I'm just going to bring up another blank page, to add images to a page. So there's a little kind of portrait here with a plus sign. I can add content to it. So I can look up, I'm going to look up puppies because puppies are cute. Okay. And I can bring up images of, you know, puppies on the board. I don't have to Google search anything, copy and paste it in here. It does a safe thing search in there. In addition to images, you can also search for videos. And what it does a YouTube video search. And you can actually just simply input the video. And what's nice about this, it's curated in such that there's no commercials or related video content that's going to show up. You can just simply place the video or play the video on here. Okay. So, and I just hit the back button to kind of get back to the page. So you have this all on the fly. So it's really nice and easy. Again, if you just want to work with your class, write some notes, look up some images, play some videos, you can just do this all on the fly. Not only can I do all of this on the fly, but I can also share this content out to student devices. All right. So on the up top here, there's a little participant icon, and students can go to hellosmart.com, and they're going to join. They can join my class by entering this code. Now, this is my ID code 390930. This is affiliated with my teacher account. So there's a teacher account that's created with Lumio online, and when students connect to my Lumio lessons, that's the same code they're going to use. And I'm signed into the board, that's the same code they're going to use. So the teachers always have the same code that follow them. So by having students go to hellosmart.com, whatever content I have on the board can be seen on their devices. And in some cases, with different pages we have here, I can, if I start my session here, I'm going to click start session. I can decide whether I want to convert the page to an activity so students can act on it individually in a group workspace where they get divided into virtual groups, or as a whole class, meaning that they all contribute and whatever actions they do to that page all show up on my screen. So this is something that I'm just giving a brief overview on, but we do plan on having future trainings and giving you some resources on how this actually works with students. If we had more time today, we would have you be the students and kind of go back and forth, but just keep that in mind for future training sessions or things that you might want to look into.
You have about 15 minutes left, just so you know.
Oh, I
So
do.
we might have some extra
All right, so
time
this
for
session is
one.
going a little differently than last
Very
session,
efficient.
right? We're being very efficient. So if you want to, you could actually join this session. So we might as well do that. So for those of you that are here, if you could open up a browser and go to hellosmart.com. This session is being recorded as well. So for the people that were in the first session, because we've maybe added a few different things to the session, they can watch both or fast forward to their favorite section.
I actually have to leave
Oh,
to get
okay.
home to bring my kiddo to practice.
Okay, well, this is gonna be recorded, but thank you. So again, if you want to go to hellosmart.com, you would join as a guest. Students can join in with their Google logins as well, so that you know who's signed into your class. They can join as a guest and go to this code. So for those of you that are remote, if you want to give me a thumbs up if you'd like to join. Okay, great. So again, hellosmart.com, you're going to see, oh, I see Kyle's connected. So you can join as a guest and type in my code. Jackie. So I see at least. I like the sunglasses on the one participant there. So what I'm going to do as you're joining the session, I'm actually just kind of take you through what we started here. So does anybody need more time getting connected? No? Okay. So what will happen here is in this particular case, this is my Venn diagram page that I have here. So I want to make it a handout. I can make it a handout, right? Before I do that, I want to set it up for the class. So I'm just going to quickly just go here and say, okay, we're going to compare and contrast two things here or whatnot. We're going to compare soccer. What I do, soccer and football. You remember? So soccer and football. Okay. Yeah. So soccer and football. So I'm going to say, okay, I want you as students to now go in there individually and add to it. So what's going to happen on the student side is that you're going to see these tools on the left-hand side, and they're going to either be a typed text, a typing tool, or an image tool, and you're going to be able to add that. You know, you're going to want to start the page as a student, click Start Page, and whoever starts the page, as the teacher, I clicked on Student Progress, and it's going to load whoever is working on that page. And I see that. We have Kathleen just joined. So again, as you're joining, my sessions would be shared with you. You're going to want to click Start Page, and you're going to want to look on the left-hand side for some tools, from typing tools or writing tools. And so I know Sarah's fervently typing away, so I'm going to click on Sarah's name here. It's similar to like a Nearpod or a Pear Deck, and Sarah has typed in a lot. She's really quick. No hands, goals, kicker, end zones. Okay. I can go back. There's a backward arrow on the top left here. I can click to see what Kyle might have done. And Kyle, longer distance to run using your feet. Okay. And I can click to see if Jackie has added anything. Fun, fast, and furious. Love it. Everyone's really doing great. And then I can click on Kathleen, and they're both on a field. Great, awesome job. So again, this is student interaction with an individual handout. And all I had done, right, was open up a whiteboard, picked a Venn diagram, wrote a couple words, and shared it out to students. Now, this session right here, as I go through this lesson with the students, you're going to be able to follow along. The students are going to be able to follow along on their devices. This page I haven't done anything with. You're not able to interact with it until I go and say, hey, I want to make this a whole handout. I can do whole class whiteboard. With whole class whiteboard, all of you are going to be able to you know, I'm going to be able to see everyone's work on one page. Okay. So as that's loading, you know, and I'm not going to know exactly who's doing what, but the idea is that we just want to have a collaborative session here on this particular page. And then this is an interactive one, so we see all sorts of things happening up on the whiteboard. and it's pretty fun. Okay. Now, I'm gonna go next page, right? So once I go to next page, it controls kind of what you can or can't do. All right. Now here we have this video I had shown about the dogs. You as students can click on that video and watch it on your own as well. Right. So you can press play and watch the video on your own time. So you have students in the classroom, they can put headphones on and they can watch the video on there. Okay.
So for people that were in the Lumio training that we did when we first, we kind of front-ended this before you got your hardware, we did some software training. Some of this might be looking familiar, just this interface of how to invite people, the Hello Smart process, you know, being able to turn things into a handout. So that's definitely still available. If it's looking familiar to you, that's good. This is that on the fly kind of equivalent through Whiteboard. So again, these are things that you wouldn't necessarily create ahead of time. I mean, you certainly could at the panel if you wanted to, but this is all through the Android operating system called IQ, and just available for you to, you know, kind of take out in front of your students and kind of take it for a spin. All of that capability in Lumio could be done ahead of time. You can certainly bring in more bells and whistles and make it more intricate and, you know, share things through Google Classroom and all those sorts of things. But this is, so I just kind of wanted to bring that up because you might be seeing some things that are familiar from that previous training that we did.
Yes, yes, exactly. So the idea here for Fall Mountain is really to take what you've learned with software training, introduce you to the hardware capabilities, and then eventually like merge everything together, right? And then you as a teacher can figure out what's best for your workflow and what tools and how you're going to use it, right? How you're going to synchronize your files, what you're actually going to do, when you're going to do it, right? Because as a teacher, you don't have, there's not enough time in the day to do everything. Right?
And I think I
You're
brought it
gonna
up in the last group, but in the high school setting, there are probably a number of classes where there's a lot of note taking. You know, you're at the whiteboard, you're walking through either math formulas or science classes or whatever it might be. And so what a great way for you to be able to do that digitally at your new display, have that automatically save to your Google Drive, and then also be able to then, or from to Lumio, sorry, I'm messing up that process, but to Lumio, and then from your Lumio account, you're able to actually grab that and distribute it to your students or put it in, you know, your Google Classroom for reference material later. So a really easy, seamless, streamlined way to kind of archive all of that note taking that you're doing at your whiteboard right now, probably your traditional whiteboard, and be able to automatically digitize that and save it and capture it and be able to have your students access that later. I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you where this file lands at your Lumio account here. Before I do that, I just want to quickly show you our widgets area, which is below the images. So our widgets are here: clock, dice, timer, spinners. If you haven't had a chance to play with them, please do. Bring them up on the board. You can click on them individually and customize them. So definitely play around with that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go home now. I'm going to go back to my computer. So I'm going to go back to the computer here, and Sarah was joined into my Lumio account. I want to go into my Lumio account. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm in my Google Drive, and your Lumio app is in your waffle. I'm going to just open up Lumio. And what should happen here, oh, I'm going to do teacher sign in really quickly. Sorry. It's okay, it's because Sarah is signed in. That's all right. Share. So what happens is that whiteboard file that we were just interacting with would sync up to my Lumio account. So it should be here, right? So I can click on it, and this is the file, right? This is the file that we were just working on, and even my student progress is saved here. So as a teacher, I can go back, even if I hadn't had a chance to look at every student's progress, I can go back and say, okay, how did Sarah do today? Okay, she's got the idea here, great, and kind of get a view of that. When I go back home, I just want to show you, Sarah mentioned you can share this out with students. Each file that gets synchronized up here can be shared as a link. So there's little 3 dots here, and you can click share link. And if you share link here, I'm not very good at clicking on this computer, but you can actually share it out to, I'll just do it from the panel. Share link, you can share with another teacher for editing purposes, or you can get a student access link so students can access the lesson and work at their own pace. They can kind of go through it as well if they missed it. So that's kind of how it all kind of, synchronizes with their online
It is
class.
nice. I mean, everybody has their own workflow and their own process. What's nice about SMART is as you trickle in these tools, the goal is to kind of simplify that process for you. So as a teacher, I, use Socrative for quizzing, and I used Quizlet, and I used, Jamboard, and I used all these different platforms for all of these different activities with my students. SMART's platform with Lumio and the IQ platform and that file sync and that integration with Google that you're already using can offer the opportunity to kind of hub all of that activity into one process, which obviously can be overwhelming at first because it's new and different. But as you trickle in one thing at a time, I think you could find that it could really streamline that process for you and your students, which of course is going to save time. If students and yourself are always logging in through the same process, you're using the same username and passwords, you don't have to remember all those other things. And the licensing involved in this, you don't have to duplicate licensing. So things like Paradeck and Nearpod cost money too for your district. And so the fact that this is all kind of bundled into one process and one offering is really exciting.
And so what we'll do as follow-up, we'll make sure we send you our training resource pages. I know you can access them through that QR code. On the Lumio page, there's training on Lumio, but we also have IQ training page, which has 2-minute videos on each feature. So again, you watch this recording back and say, oh yeah, I like that feature. How do I, what's more information can I find on it, and look at our training resource page. And what I would encourage, I guess, in general here at Fall Mountain is to gather what would you like next for training? What would you like as a follow-up training? Maybe get questions together or workflows together, and we can kind of focus on that the next time we come out. So,
Sounds awesome.
all right.
Well, thank you.